Who are European Americans, you ask? European Americans are Americans who originated in Europe. The first colony was founded at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. Most who settled in the United States came because of religious beliefs. In 1881, 2 million Eastern Europeans, Jews, migrated to the United States. Consideration of Jewish women, lives, and experiences during the Holocaust became a priority only in the late 20th century. Scholars focus on women's roles as homemakers, wives, breadwinners, supporters, and resistors, with little, if any, attention paid to their reproductive or sexual lives. Many consider that the laws shielded Jewish women from the worst horrors of rape and sexual abuse, leading to little investigation of the issue. Significant acts of emotional, sexual, and physical abuse of women were, however, perpetrated by the Nazis and others against men and women, Jews and non-Jews, which included nudity, humiliating them, rape, and some physical, emotional, and psychological issues. In 1891, Congress makes persons suffering from a loathsome or a dangerous contagious disease, those convicted of a misdemeanor involving moral turpitude, and polygamists ineligible for immigration. Congress also establishes the Office of Superintendent of Immigration within the Treasury Department. European colonists came to America with racist notions of primitive African and savage Indians that justify enslaving them. Seeds of white supremacy were sustained and nurtured on American soil. British immigrants, who were a dominant ethnic group, witnessed people from other European nations coming to the colonies, creating the difficult task of coexistence in a diverse community by immigrants. As new immigrants workers adapted to the life in the United States, they came to realize how they were being exploited. Many joined or helped create unions to demand better wages and benefits by engaging in strike, marches, and protests. There was constant pressure from society to promote the Americanization of immigrants, and public schools carried out society expectations to abandon their heritage and conform to American ways. Our president, Theodore Roosevelt, once said, "There is no room in this country for hyphenated Americans." Roosevelt admonished anyone who maintained dual identity by denouncing all immigrants. In settlement houses, such as the Whole House in Chicago, people providing social services began to appreciate the diversity of the immigrants. Social advocates James Adams, co-founder of the Whole House, praised the advantages of diverse cultures and the value of people maintaining their heritage while still knowing and learning about America. Because immigrants often sometimes spoke different languages, once they learned American English, they were still discriminated on because of their accents. Those whose speech is accented were presumed to be less intelligent than those whose speech was an accent that were most closely approaches the norm. Some immigrants try to avoid the stigma by turning to speech tutors, even when their accents do not impair their comprehensibility. Whiteness is defined as the quality or state of being white, paleness or pure. Times dated back to the Jim Crow laws shows traces of socially constructive knowledge about race and whiteness. White privilege has its advantages when it came to slavery because of exploitation, segregation, and genocide. Tim Wise, an American anti-racism activist and writer, has given over 600 speeches to college campuses. Tim Wise speaks of white supremacy and the contemporary benefits of white supremacy and what they gain in the United States. Here are some stereotypes. 19 men that were Arab and Muslim flew planes into the buildings on September 2011. Rational human beings insist everyone perceived to be like them must be stopped and searched at airports, unlike the bombings of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. Blacks and Latinos are more likely to be stopped and have their cars searched compared to whites, whom rarely get stopped, although it's been more likely that whites have drugs on them in their cars. White baby boomers will inherit $7 to $10 million in property assets that were attained by their white families during the U.S. formal apartheid, slavery, GI Bill, and redlining. The election of Barack Obama, white supremacy online activity spiked. White supremacist groups and individuals claimed that Barack Obama's presidency, the immigration issues, and the tough economic issues would serve as powerful catalysts for recruiting more people to the white supremacist movement. The U.S. Census in 1950 stated that 74% of the race was white. In 2010, 64% of the U.S. population was white or non-Hispanic. There is a prediction that in 2060 that there will only be 40% of the population white and non-Hispanic. There are many influential people in today's society. Hillary Clinton was listed in 2012 as one of the world's most influential people. Hillary Clinton has made contributions to strengthening this country's relationship with allies, partners, and friends. She is a symbol for strength for women, campaigning for women's rights, and plans to build a strong, growing economy that works for everyone. Dr. Jonas Salk invented the polio vaccination. Before there was a vaccination, this disease crippled President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Polio attacks the nerve system and can cause paralysis and or sometimes death. Louis Grandius created America's first system of mediation and arbitration in 1912. He was the first Jew appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Among his notable early cases as a lawyer, he fought against railroad monopolies. Dr. Gertrude Elion first developed chemotherapy treatment for childhood leukemia. Elion was a scientist and helped develop drugs to treat many major diseases and was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Tom Brady has won 4 Super Bowls, most in NFL history. He has also won 2 MVP awards. He is also chosen as one of the People's Magazine's 50 Most Beautiful People. Our very own Governor Nathan Deal has overhauled the social work program here in Georgia. Nathan Deal fired the head of the Georgia's Child Protective Division and hired an early childhood expert to overhaul Georgia's Department of Family and Children's Services foster care program.
Ask the average American their knowledge of European Americans, what kind of answers would you get? More than likely, there would be a myriad of answers, ranging from credible to stereotypical. The media, as we know, influences our perceptions of different facets of life. The most prevalent and recurring is of different cultures and peoples from around the globe. Although there are innumerable media outlets, the most notable and influential in American cultures are news stations, including television and radio, reality television, film, and television series, live and animated. It has been found that over 70% of mass murders in America were committed by non-Hispanic Caucasian men. Studies show that mass murder is considered to be a specifically Caucasian male phenomenon, where their African American counterparts are closely tied to single victim homicides. In the media, these mass murderers are depicted as being emotionally and mentally unstable and usually privileged, and sometimes victims of verbal or physical abuse. They are painted as sociopaths that have usually experienced some form of failure, rejection, or loss. Take, for instance, the shootings at Sandy Hook in 2014 and Columbine in 1999. All 3 of these perpetrators were said to have battled with depression or mental instabilities. Summarily, these mass murderers are portrayed as troubled individuals with uncontrollable forces in play that cause them to commit these acts. Next, in more recent times, there has come a fascination with white trash in reality TV. Take, for instance, shows like Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, Gypsy Sisters, and Duck Dynasty. So entertained audiences are with these characters' lives. White trash have historically been segregated and separated from their more affluent counterparts, deemed to be unfit, moralist, and idiotic. Surprisingly, Television made a decision to capitalize on what many previously condemned. Most times, white trash is associated with the South. Places like Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia constantly the butt of jokes as being inherently ignorant, poor, backward progressing, and the most insulting, incestuous. These shows epitomize these very stereotypes. In Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, not even young Elena, who was a child, the show's star, is immune to crude reception from audiences. Some overall attitudes go as far as calling her and her entire family fat, unintelligent, and embarrassing to the South, and particularly Caucasian Americans. This show, and those like it, further fuel America's negative perception of lower-income Caucasians in America.
A-gamers, when you're going to be on your A-game, you need to be on your A-game.
I didn't win nothing.
For the next time.
You spell bingo, B-I-N-G. Oh.
Lastly, most prevalent in television series and film, we see the stereotyping of European Americans, most notably Jewish and Italian Americans. Family Guy, the animated series, is one of the top-rated and longest-running cartoons of recent times. It is also known for its unrelenting yet non-discriminatory stereotyped characters, which is kind of an oxymoron in itself. Let's take Mort Goldman's family. Jewish-born, Mort and his family live up to the stereotypical nuances of Jewish life, values, beliefs, and behavior. Mort is depicted as neurotic, obsessively cheap, and riddled with hypochondria. He is also seen as being superstitious, not unlike other Jewish characters that have been in shows like The Nanny and Will and Grace. Female Jewish individuals like Fran in The Nanny and Grace in Will and Grace are also depicted as being obsessed with finding a successful man to complete their life and make them honorable women. We move over to a more negative and criminal stereotype placed upon Italian Americans from films such as The Godfather and Scarface, which fuel the assumption that Italians are quickly angered, potentially if not already dangerous, mob-affiliated peoples who exhibit behavior associated with egomania and those who suffer with possessive personalities.
It seems foolish to have all this money lying around.
Oh, you'd rather have it down at the bank where the Jewish guys can leer at it?
Yeah, money.
Immigrants of all different ethnicities face many obstacles like discrimination and oppression. European American immigrants are no exception. One of the biggest forces in play that immigrants deal with when moving to America and beginning assimilation is cultural and language barriers. Not being able to effectively communicate for both parties causes stress on those who are immigrating and for those who are trying to help them, like social workers, potential employers, healthcare officials and workers, teachers, and among many others that will be important points of contact for those immigrating. First, people in these professions need to take part in training designed to build cultural empathy and integration skills, to help each individual set aside personal biases and beliefs, and to be knowledgeable about available resources such as cultural liaisons, which will include services such as translators and people that are familiar with, if not a native of a specific group of European Americans. For the European Americans themselves, it is important for them to have access to skill-building courses such as computer courses, ESL conversational classes, and job resources. For social workers and those associated, it is important to be fervent in acquiring funding for these programs, may it be through charities and grants, so that these services will be little to no cost for its recipients. Now, in the case of current and ongoing discrimination against European Americans, it is important to address media portrayals and attitudes against them. We have to be realistic in attempts to combat these outlets, such as cartoons, news stories, and film. But a much more micro-level approach will be best. People, especially adolescents, who are wildly impressionable, need to understand that one cannot make assumptions on a whole groups of people based upon isolated incidents, popular culture, and rumor. One effective measure would be to implement cultural immersion events or courses in primary and secondary education institutions, as well as offer these same programs to assist in cultural empathy skills within various types of workplaces, especially within high traffic environments like hospitals.